Hello there, and welcome to Whispered Knowledge. I'm glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you had a long day filled with questions that don't have answers, or perhaps you're the kind of person who finds comfort in mysteries rather than certainties. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. You've got nothing to do but rest. Let your mind drift through the unknown, your breathing slow, and your curiosity gently unfold as we explore the edges of human understanding. Because tonight, we aren't simply listing facts. We're wandering through the profound gaps in our knowledge, the questions that keep scientists awake at night, the phenomena that defy our best explanations. From the nature of consciousness itself, to strange lights in the sky, from the birth of the universe to the mystery of why you yawn, we'll travel through 100 enigmas that science has yet to solve. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Other facts might feel familiar, like old friends you've wondered about in quiet moments. But all of them share one thing in common. Despite centuries of investigation, brilliant minds, and sophisticated instruments, they remain wrapped in mystery. The universe, it seems, guards its secrets carefully. And just before we begin, if these explorations help you unwind or give you a quiet way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here, too, one curious soul at a time. Now, let's begin our journey into the unknown, the cosmic mysteries. We start our journey at the largest scale imaginable, out in the vast darkness between galaxies, where the biggest mysteries of all remain unsolved. Dark matter composes most of the universe, yet we cannot see it. When astronomers calculate the mass of galaxies by adding up all the visible stars, gas and dust, the numbers don't make sense. Galaxies rotate too fast. They should fly apart, scattering their stars like water from a spinning wheel. But they don't. Something invisible holds them together. Something that doesn't emit light, doesn't absorb it, doesn't interact with the electromagnetic spectrum in any way we can detect. Scientists call this dark matter, and it makes up approximately 84% of all matter in the universe. We know it's there because of its gravitational effects, because of the way it bends light around massive galaxy clusters, because without it, the universe as we observe it couldn't exist. But what is it? Weakly interacting massive particles? Primordial black holes? Some new form of matter entirely? Despite decades of searches with increasingly sensitive detectors buried deep underground and sent into space, we haven't directly detected a single particle of dark matter. It surrounds us, permeates the galaxy, holds everything together, and yet remains completely invisible to our instruments and our understanding. Dark energy pushes the universe apart, and we don't know why. In the late 1990s, astronomers made a shocking discovery. The universe isn't just expanding, it's accelerating. Something is pushing space itself apart, overcoming gravity, driving galaxies away from each other at ever-increasing speeds. They name this mysterious force dark energy, and it makes up roughly 68% of all the energy in the universe. But that name is just a placeholder for our ignorance. We don't know what dark energy is, where it comes from, or why it exists. Some theories suggest it's a property of space itself, a cosmological constant that Albert Einstein once proposed and then abandoned. Others propose it's a dynamic field that changes over time, called quintessence. Still others wonder if our understanding of gravity itself needs revision on cosmic scales. What we do know is that dark energy will determine the ultimate fate of the universe. If it continues strengthening, the expansion will accelerate until even atoms are torn apart in what scientists call the Big Rip. If it weakens, gravity might eventually win, collapsing everything back into a big crunch. The universe's destiny hangs on a force we cannot explain. The Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter. But where is all the antimatter? According to physics, every particle of matter has an antimatter counterpart with opposite electrical charge. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other in a burst of pure energy. The Big Bang should have created exactly equal amounts of both. They should have immediately annihilated each other, leaving nothing but radiation. And yet, here we are, made of matter, living on a planet made of matter, in a galaxy made of matter. The antimatter is missing. Somewhere in the first fractions of a second after the Big Bang, something broke the symmetry. For every billion particle-antiparticle pairs that annihilated each other, one extra particle of matter survived. That tiny imbalance, 1 part in a billion, is why anything exists at all. But we don't know what caused it. This violation of matter-antimatter symmetry, called baryogenesis, remains one of the deepest mysteries in physics. Without understanding it, we cannot fully explain why we exist. Fast radio bursts flood the cosmos, and their source remains unknown. In 2007, astronomers discovered something strange in archived radio telescope data, a powerful burst of radio waves that lasted just milliseconds, but released as much energy as the sun emits in an entire day. Since then, thousands of these fast radio bursts have been detected, most coming from billions of light years away. They arrive without warning, brilliant flashes of radio light that seem to come from all directions in the sky. Some repeat, flashing again and again from the same spot. Others appear once and never return. What creates them? The leading candidates include magnetars, neutron stars with magnetic fields 1 trillion times stronger than Earth's. Others propose colliding neutron stars, evaporating black holes, or even advanced alien civilizations sending signals across the cosmos. Most bursts are too far away to study in detail, their sources lost in the vastness of space. The universe is shouting at us in radio waves, and we don't yet understand the language. Cosmic inflation is a leading theory, but we can't prove it or fully explain it. In the first tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang, something extraordinary may have occurred, according to one of cosmology's most influential theories. The universe could have inflated, expanding exponentially faster than the speed of light, doubling in size every infinitesimal moment. In less than 1/trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second, a region smaller than an atom ballooned to the size of a grapefruit, or larger. This theory of cosmic inflation elegantly explains many observations. Why the universe looks the same in all directions, why space is so flat, why distant regions that should never have been in contact share the same properties. But what drove inflation? Most theories invoke a hypothetical field called the inflaton, but we don't know what it is, what it's made of, or where it came from. The energy required for inflation is staggering, and where that energy originated remains unexplained. Some observations of the cosmic microwave background radiation support inflation, showing the expected patterns of density fluctuations. But direct proof remains elusive. The very first moment of creation remains hidden behind a veil of physics we don't yet understand. Black holes might destroy information, violating quantum mechanics. When something falls into a black hole, it disappears behind the event horizon, beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape. According to general relativity, the information about what fell in is lost forever. But according to quantum mechanics, information can never be truly destroyed. This contradiction called the black hole information paradox has troubled physicists for decades. Stephen Hawking showed theoretically that black holes aren't completely black. They should emit radiation and slowly evaporate over immense timescales. But this Hawking radiation, while widely accepted theoretically, has never been directly observed. But the radiation appears to be random, carrying no information about what fell in. This would mean black holes destroy information, breaking one of the fundamental laws of quantum physics. Hawking later suggested information might be encoded on the event horizon, or somehow leak out through the radiation, but the details remain unclear. The question touches the deepest foundations of physics. What happens to information at the boundary between the quantum realm and gravity's domain? We don't yet know. The universe's expansion is accelerating, and we don't fully understand the implications. Not only is space expanding, pushing galaxies apart, but this expansion is speeding up over time. Measurements of distant supernovae revealed this shocking fact at the turn of this century. The discovery earned a Nobel Prize and shook cosmology to its core. It means the universe won't just expand forever. Based on current observations, it appears it will expand faster and faster, eventually reaching a point where even nearby galaxies recede from us faster than light can travel between us. In the far future, if this trend continues, astronomers in the Milky Way could see nothing beyond our local group of galaxies. The rest of the universe could have disappeared beyond an unreachable horizon. All evidence of the Big Bang, of the larger cosmos, could be gone. If dark energy continues strengthening, an even stranger fate could await us, according to some theoretical models. The Big Rip scenario suggests that eventually, the acceleration might become so extreme that it tears apart galaxy clusters, then galaxies, then solar systems, then planets, then atoms themselves. The universe would end in a catastrophic unraveling of all structure. But we don't know if this will happen, when it would happen, or if dark energy might change in ways that alter this fate entirely. Consciousness and the mind. Now we turn inward to the mysteries that live between your ears, the enigmas of consciousness and the sleeping mind. How subjective experience emerges from physical brain processes remains unexplained. Right now, you're having an experience. You're aware of these words, of your thoughts, of sensations in your body. You have a subjective point of view, something it's like to be you. Neuroscientists can map brain activity, identify which neurons fire when you see red or feel pain, trace the networks involved in attention and memory. But the hard problem remains. Why does all this neural activity produce subjective experience at all? Why is there something it's like to be you, rather than nothing? A philosophical thought experiment illustrates the puzzle. Imagine Mary, a scientist who knows everything about color vision, every wavelength and neuron and chemical process. But she's lived her entire life in a black and white room. When Mary finally sees color for the first time, does she learn something new? It seems she must. She learns what red looks like. But if she already knew all the physical facts, what did she learn? This suggests consciousness includes something beyond the physical, or at least something our current physics cannot capture. Some philosophers argue the problem stems from human psychology, our tendency to see mind and matter as fundamentally separate. Others propose consciousness as a basic feature of reality, like mass or charge. Still others suggest it emerges from information processing or quantum effects in the brain. But none of these theories fully explain how electrochemical signals in neurons become the felt quality of redness, the sharp sensation of pain, or the flavor of coffee. The transformation from matter to mind remains one of science's deepest mysteries. We dream every night, but the purpose of dreams eludes us. For approximately 2 hours each night, during rapid eye movement sleep, your brain constructs elaborate hallucinations. You experience vivid narratives, impossible physics, emotional dramas, all while your body lies paralyzed to prevent you from acting out the dream. Dreams have fascinated humanity for millennia, interpreted as messages from gods, windows to the unconscious, or prophetic visions. But science still struggles to explain their function. One theory suggests dreams help consolidate memories, replaying and integrating the day's experiences. Studies show people who dream about newly learned tasks perform better later. But why the bizarre content? Why not just strengthen neural connections quietly? Another theory proposes dreams simulate threats, allowing us to practice responses to danger in a safe environment. This would explain nightmares and anxiety dreams. Yet many dreams seem random, purposeless. A third idea suggests dreams are simply meaningless noise, random neural firing that the brain tries to interpret as coherent narratives. But this doesn't explain the emotional intensity and occasional profound insights some dreams provide. Recent research indicates dreams might help regulate emotions, processing difficult feelings by replaying them in different contexts. The sleeping brain disconnects the emotional centers from the logical ones, allowing new associations and perspective shifts. But this doesn't explain why dreams take narrative form, why they feel so real, or why we spend so much energy on them. After thousands of years of wondering, dreams remain mysterious. Near-death experiences share common features, but their origin is unclear. People who come close to death sometimes report profound experiences. They describe leaving their bodies, traveling through tunnels toward bright lights, meeting deceased relatives, reviewing their entire lives, feeling overwhelming peace, or encountering otherworldly beings. These near-death experiences occur across cultures, though specific details vary. Some see religious figures from their tradition, others report purely abstract phenomena. The similarities are striking enough that researchers wonder whether they reveal something fundamental about consciousness, brain death, or what lies beyond. Skeptics propose physiological explanations. Oxygen deprivation to the brain can cause tunnel vision and hallucinations. The brain's temporal lobes, when stimulated, produce out-of-body sensations. Endorphins released during trauma create feelings of peace. The life review might come from rapid, random firing across memory systems, but these explanations don't fully account for the clarity and consistency of the reports, or the transformative impact these experiences have. Some people claim to have perceived events during cardiac arrest that they couldn't have known about, seeing and hearing things while clinically dead. These veridical perceptions, if accurate, challenge materialist explanations. Yet confirming them is difficult. The experiences happen in extreme, uncontrolled circumstances. Do near-death experiences reveal an afterlife, a separable soul, or just the brain's last gasp? Science remains uncertain. Anesthesia works, but we don't fully understand how or why. Every day, millions of people undergo surgery, kept unconscious by anesthetic drugs. They feel no pain, form no memories, experience nothing during procedures that would otherwise be agonizing. Anesthesia is one of medicine's greatest achievements, and yet, over 175 years after its discovery, we still don't completely understand how it works. We know anesthetics affect various neurotransmitter systems, enhancing some inhibitory signals, blocking others. Different anesthetics have different molecular targets: GABA receptors, potassium channels, glutamate pathways. But knowing which molecules are affected doesn't explain how consciousness disappears. Why does disrupting these particular neural pathways erase subjective experience? The puzzle deepens when you consider that very different drugs, from simple gases like nitrous oxide to complex molecules like propofol, all produce similar effects. They seem to share no common mechanism at the molecular level, yet all eliminate consciousness. Some theories propose anesthetics disrupt large-scale brain connectivity, breaking the integration of information across different regions. Others suggest they affect quantum processes in neuronal microtubules, though this remains highly speculative. What's clear is that consciousness can be reliably switched off and on by chemicals, suggesting it depends on specific brain states. But which states and why those particular ones matter remains unclear. Sleep appears universal in animals, but its core function remains debated. You'll spend roughly a third of your life asleep, unconscious and vulnerable. Every animal with a nervous system sleeps or shows something like sleep, from fruit flies to elephants. This universality suggests sleep serves some crucial function, something worth the enormous cost in time and safety. But what? The leading theory holds that sleep allows the brain to consolidate memories, moving information from temporary storage to long-term networks, strengthening important connections and pruning unnecessary ones. Sleep-deprived people and animals show memory deficits. Brain scans reveal replay of daily experiences during sleep. But memory consolidation doesn't require full unconsciousness. Why couldn't the brain do this while awake? Another proposal suggests sleep clears metabolic waste from the brain. During waking hours, neurons produce toxic byproducts. A waste clearance system called the glymphatic system becomes more active during sleep, flushing these toxins away. Studies show sleep-deprived brains accumulate harmful proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. Yet waste clearance also seems like something evolution could accomplish without rendering organisms unconscious. A third idea proposes sleep allows the brain to restore energy reserves, replenish depleted neurotransmitters, and repair cellular damage. Most likely, sleep serves multiple functions, each contributing to overall brain health and performance. But we still don't know which function is primary, why consciousness must be suspended to accomplish them, or why different species have evolved such varied sleep patterns. Memory formation remains partially mysterious. You can remember your first day of school, what you ate for breakfast, how to ride a bicycle, the smell of rain. These memories feel unified, as though stored in specific places in your brain, like files on a computer. But the reality is far stranger. Memories aren't stored in single locations. They're distributed across networks of neurons, recreated each time you recall them. This reconstruction process explains why memories change, why they're influenced by suggestion, why false memories feel just as real as true ones. But we still don't understand several fundamental aspects of memory. How does the brain decide what to remember and what to forget? Most experiences vanish within hours. Some last a lifetime. The selection process remains mysterious. How are memories encoded at the molecular level? We know synapses strengthen and weaken, that new proteins must be synthesized, that specific genes activate during memory formation. But the detailed mechanisms, the grammar of the neural code, eludes us. How does the brain tie together different aspects of a memory? The sights, sounds, emotions, and contexts, then retrieve them as a unified whole. This binding problem appears in consciousness too. Memory researchers can now create false memories in mice, make animals remember things that never happened, By artificially stimulating neural patterns, they can erase specific memories, strengthen others, even implant simple associations. But the full architecture of human autobiographical memory, how we construct our sense of self from remembered experiences, remains beyond our complete understanding. Déjà vu creates the eerie sense we've experienced something before, but its cause isn't certain. You walk into a room you've never been in before, yet it feels hauntingly familiar. You're certain you've lived this exact moment already, though you know that's impossible. This is déjà vu, and nearly everyone experiences it occasionally. The sensation is distinct, unsettling, and fleeting. What causes it? The leading neurological explanation suggests déjà vu arises from a timing glitch in the brain. Information from your senses normally reaches consciousness through multiple pathways at slightly different speeds. Usually, these signals arrive close enough together that your brain integrates them seamlessly. But occasionally, a slight delay occurs. One pathway delivers information milliseconds before another. Your brain processes the first signal, then receives the second, creating the false impression that you're experiencing something for the second time. Another theory proposes déjà vu involves the memory systems. The brain might accidentally store a current experience directly into long-term memory instead of short-term, making it feel like a retrieved memory rather than a new experience. Or perhaps current perceptions activate memories of similar but forgotten experiences, creating a sense of familiarity without conscious recall of the source. Some researchers link déjà vu to temporal lobe epilepsy, where unusual electrical activity in memory processing regions can trigger the sensation. But most people who experience déjà vu don't have epilepsy, suggesting a different mechanism in typical cases. The phenomenon remains incompletely understood, a minor glitch in consciousness that reminds us how constructed and fragile our sense of the present moment actually is. The origin of life. We shift now from mind to the mystery of living matter itself, to the question that has puzzled humanity since we first wondered where we came from. How life arose from non-living chemistry remains unsolved. 3.5 billion years ago, maybe 4, somewhere on the early Earth, non-living chemicals organized themselves into something we would recognize as alive. That first living thing could metabolize, taking energy from its environment. It could reproduce, making copies of itself. It could evolve, passing on information to descendants with occasional variations. How this transition happened from simple molecules to a self-replicating, evolving system is one of science's greatest mysteries. The traditional story begins with a primordial soup of organic molecules in the ocean or near volcanic vents. Lightning, ultraviolet radiation, or chemical energy drove reactions that built amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, and nucleotides, the components of RNA and DNA. The famous Miller-Urey experiment of 1952 demonstrated this was possible, creating amino acids from simple gases. But getting from building blocks to a living cell requires vastly more. You need a membrane to contain everything, metabolism to extract energy, and most importantly, a way to store and replicate information. The chicken and egg problem looms large. Modern life uses DNA to store information and proteins to perform functions, but DNA can't replicate without proteins, and proteins can't be built without DNA instructions. This puzzle led to the RNA world hypothesis. Perhaps RNA came first, serving as both information storage and catalyst. But even this requires getting RNA molecules to form spontaneously and start self-replicating, which seems statistically improbable given the complexity required. Despite decades of research, and increasingly sophisticated experiments, we cannot yet create life from scratch in the laboratory. The exact pathway from chemistry to biology remains unknown, perhaps lost forever in deep time. The formation of the first cell membrane puzzles scientists. Even if we could explain how self-replicating molecules arose, we'd still need to explain how they became enclosed in cell membranes. Modern cells are wrapped in lipid bilayers, double-layered sheets of fatty molecules that separate inside from outside, creating a controlled environment where biochemistry can happen. Without membranes, molecules would diffuse away, reactions couldn't be controlled, nothing would stay organized. But how did membranes first form? Fatty acids and similar molecules can spontaneously organize into bubble-like vesicles in water, demonstrating that basic membrane formation isn't impossibly hard. Researchers have created simple protocells in the lab, membrane-bound sacs that can grow, divide, and even incorporate RNA molecules. But these artificial protocells don't replicate information or metabolize with anything like the sophistication of real cells. The coordination required to get self-replicating molecules inside the right kind of membrane, with the metabolism needed to support both, seems to require many things happening in exactly the right sequence. How did these processes become linked? Did membranes form first, trapping random chemicals that sometimes included proto-life? Did replicating molecules come first, later acquiring membranes? Or did everything have to emerge together in some kind of synergistic process? The compartmentalization of life, the division between inside and outside, is fundamental to what we are. But its origin remains mysterious. Why life uses only left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars is unexplained. Molecules can come in mirror image forms called chirality, like your left and right hands. They're identical in composition, but mirror images in shape. Many biological molecules are chiral. Amino acids can be left-handed or right-handed. So can sugars. In non-biological chemistry, these mirror forms occur in equal amounts. But all life on Earth uses exclusively left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. This homochirality is essential. If proteins contained both left and right-handed amino acids randomly, they couldn't fold into consistent shapes. They couldn't function. But why did life settle on left for amino acids and right for sugars instead of the reverse? No one knows for certain. The choice seems arbitrary from a chemistry standpoint. One theory proposes that certain conditions in the early Earth might have favored one form slightly over the other, and once life started using that form, it became locked in through a process called autocatalytic amplification. Circularly polarized ultraviolet light from space might preferentially destroy one form. Certain mineral surfaces might favor reactions with one-handedness, but these effects are tiny, and it's unclear how they create the complete dominance we see. Another possibility is pure chance. Maybe the first replicating molecules happened to be left-handed, and all life descended from them. In a parallel universe, life might use right-handed amino acids and left-handed sugars. Or perhaps there's a deep physical reason we haven't discovered, some subtle asymmetry in the fundamental forces that slightly favors one form. How extremophiles survive in impossible conditions challenges our understanding. Life exists in boiling hot springs, in Antarctic ice, in acid strong enough to dissolve metal, under crushing pressure miles below the ocean surface, inside rocks, deep underground, even in the reactor cores of nuclear power plants. These extremophiles, organisms thriving in conditions that would instantly kill most life, expand our definition of what's possible. But how they do it often remains unclear. Some extremophiles have proteins that function at temperatures above the boiling point of water, where normal proteins would unfold and stop working. Others produce antifreeze compounds that prevent ice crystals from forming in their cells at far below freezing temperatures. Certain bacteria repair DNA damage from radiation faster than it accumulates. Some organisms survive years without water, shutting down all metabolism, then reviving when water returns. The mechanisms behind these abilities involve specialized proteins, unique membrane compositions, unusual DNA repair systems, and protective molecules that stabilize cellular components. But the evolution of these capabilities puzzles scientists. How did extremophiles acquire such specific, complex adaptations? Did they evolve in extreme environments or colonize them later? Understanding extremophiles matters for more than just biology. If life can survive in Earth's most hostile environments, it might also exist in the seemingly inhospitable environments of other worlds, in Mars's frozen soil, in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moons, or in places we haven't yet imagined. Whether life exists elsewhere in the universe remains unknown. We've discovered thousands of planets orbiting other stars. Many lie in their star's habitable zone, where liquid water could exist on the surface. Some exoplanets are rocky, Earth-sized worlds that might harbor conditions suitable for life as we know it. The ingredients for life, water, organic molecules, energy sources, seem common throughout the universe. Yet we have no confirmed detection of life beyond Earth. This absence creates a profound uncertainty. Is life rare, a cosmic accident that happened only once? Or is it common, and we simply haven't looked carefully enough yet? The search continues on multiple fronts. Astronomers study exoplanet atmospheres, looking for biosignatures like oxygen and methane in combinations that suggest biological processes. Mars rovers search for fossil evidence of ancient microbial life. Missions to icy moons prepare to sample subsurface oceans. Radio telescopes scan the skies for signals from technological civilizations. But so far, silence. The possibility that we're alone in the universe is both humbling and terrifying. It would mean this pale blue dot harbors something precious beyond measure, consciousness, and life in an otherwise dead cosmos. The alternative, that life is common, raises its own questions. Why haven't we detected it? Are we looking in the wrong ways? Is technological civilization so rare or short-lived that few exist at any given time? The answer to whether we're alone would fundamentally reshape our understanding of our place in the cosmos. Panspermia suggests life might have come from space, but this remains unproven. An alternative to Earth origin theories proposes that life didn't start here at all. Instead, simple life forms or the building blocks of life arrived from elsewhere in the cosmos, perhaps on meteorites, comets, or even propelled by radiation pressure between star systems. This idea, called panspermia, has ancient roots but remains scientifically controversial. Its strongest evidence comes from the discovery of organic molecules in meteorites, some containing amino acids and other biological building blocks. Laboratory experiments show that some microorganisms can survive the harsh conditions of space for extended periods when protected inside rock. Simulations suggest impacts could eject material from one planet and deliver it to another, potentially transferring life from Mars to Earth, or vice versa. The appeal of panspermia is that it provides more time and space for life to emerge. Instead of arising in the relatively short window, early in Earth's history, life could have billions of years to start somewhere else and spread. But panspermia doesn't solve the origin of life problem, it just relocates it. If life came from Mars, how did it start there? If from interstellar space, where and how? Most scientists view panspermia as an interesting possibility, but focus on Earth-based origin scenarios where we can actually test hypotheses. Mysterious physical phenomena. Now we turn to strange events that occur right here on Earth. Phenomena observed but not yet explained. Ball lightning appears during storms, but its nature remains mysterious. Imagine a glowing sphere, roughly the size of a grapefruit or basketball, floating through the air during a thunderstorm. It might be red, orange, yellow, blue, or white. It moves erratically, sometimes passing through windows or walls, sometimes bouncing off surfaces. It lasts for seconds, perhaps minutes, then vanishes, silently or with a bang, occasionally leaving behind the smell of sulfur. This is ball lightning, one of nature's most perplexing phenomena. For centuries, scientists dismissed reports as hallucinations or misidentifications, but too many credible witnesses described similar events. In 2012, Chinese researchers accidentally captured what appears to be ball lightning on video and analyzed its light spectrum during a thunderstorm observation, providing one of the first documented scientific measurements. The spectrum showed silicon, iron, and calcium, elements found in sessile soil. This supports one theory. Regular lightning vaporizes soil, separating silicon from oxygen. The pure silicon forms a hot, glowing ball that slowly oxidizes, burning in the air. But this theory can't explain ball lightning that appears indoors, far from soil, or that passes through solid objects. Other hypotheses invoke microwave radiation from lightning, creating plasma bubbles, trapped antimatter, quantum effects, or magnetic field structures. Researchers have created phenomena resembling ball lightning in laboratories, glowing plasma spheres that float and persist. But do these match natural ball lightning? Ball lightning remains rare, unpredictable, and difficult to study. What we do know is that millions of people throughout history have reported seeing it, that it occasionally causes fires or injuries, and that despite all our understanding of electricity and plasma physics, we cannot yet fully explain it. Sonoluminescence produces light from sound, and the mechanism is debated. If you take a glass of water, suspend a tiny bubble in it using sound waves, and hit that bubble with the right frequency of sound, something remarkable happens. The bubble collapses and rebounds, collapsing again and again in rhythm with the sound. And during each collapse, for a trillionth of a second, the bubble emits a flash of light. This phenomenon, called sonoluminescence, transforms sound energy into light in a way that seems almost magical. The collapsing bubble creates extraordinary conditions. Temperatures inside might reach tens of thousands of degrees. Pressure becomes enormous, and the bubble's interior gas is compressed to incredible densities. But what produces the light? Several theories compete. One suggests the heat inside the collapsing bubble creates a tiny plasma, ionized gas that glows. Another proposes shock waves inside the bubble generate the light. A third, more exotic idea suggests quantum effects or even tiny fusion reactions might occur inside the collapsing bubble, though this remains highly controversial. Some researchers have reported detecting hints of neutrons, particles that could potentially indicate fusion, though these claims have not been widely accepted and remain debated in the scientific community. After decades of study, sonoluminescence remains only partially explained. The basic mechanism of collapse and heating seems clear, but the detailed physics, especially why and how light is produced, includes mysteries. Here we have a phenomenon we can reliably create in a laboratory something that seems simple, sound waves in water, yet we can't fully explain what we observe. The Taos hum bothers some people, but its source remains unknown. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, some residents and visitors report hearing a persistent low-frequency hum. It's most noticeable at night. Sounds like a distant diesel engine idling, and according to surveys, only a small percentage of people, perhaps around 2%, can hear it. Those who do often describe it as maddening, disrupting sleep and concentration, but no one has definitively identified its source. The Taos hum is just the most famous example. Similar low-frequency hums have been reported worldwide, from Bristol in England to Bondi in Australia. Investigators have proposed many explanations. Industrial machinery, electrical equipment, distant traffic, or military activities might produce low-frequency sound that travels far and penetrates buildings. But investigations in Taos and elsewhere have failed to correlate the hum with any specific source. Some researchers propose the sound is internal to the people who hear it, a form of tinnitus or spontaneous otoacoustic emissions, sounds produced by the ear itself. This would explain why only some people hear it and why it persists even in acoustically isolated rooms. But why would it cluster geographically? Another theory involves very low-frequency electromagnetic radiation that some individuals can perceive, perhaps through bone conduction or direct stimulation of the auditory nerve. For the people who hear them, the hums are real, intrusive, and unexplained. Earthquake lights flash and glow before and during earthquakes, and their cause is uncertain. For centuries, people have reported strange lights in the sky before, during, or after earthquakes. These earthquake lights appear as brief flashes, glowing orbs, or sustain luminescence near the horizon. They can be white, blue, or multicolored. Some reports are clearly misidentified regular lightning or aurora, but others seem to be a genuine, if rare, phenomenon. Photos and videos from recent earthquakes show unexplained lights. What causes them? The leading theory proposes that stress in rocks generates electrical charges. Certain types of rocks, especially those containing quartz, are piezoelectric. When compressed, they generate electric fields. Enormous stress building up along a fault line before an earthquake might create powerful electric fields. These could ionize the air, creating visible plasma. Charges might travel up through fractures in the rock to the surface, discharging at the ground and creating glows or sparks. This theory explains why earthquake lights are more common in certain geological settings, and why they often appear before the main shock when stress is building. But it doesn't explain all observations. Some lights appear far from the epicenter. Others occur during the earthquake itself, when stress is being released, not building. Until we can study earthquake lights systematically, perhaps by monitoring zones where earthquakes are frequent and expected, the phenomenon remains mysterious. The WOW signal was detected in 1977, and we still don't know what it was. On August 15, 1977, a radio telescope at Ohio State University detected a strong, narrowband signal from space. It lasted 72 seconds, the maximum time the telescope's beam could observe any spot in the sky, as Earth rotated. The signal was so strong, so unusual, so exactly the type of signal that Radio SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, was looking for. That astronomer Jerry Amon circled it on the printout and wrote, "Wow," in the margin. The signal came from the direction of Sagittarius. It had precisely the frequency that SETI researchers expect an advanced civilization might use, because it's the natural emission frequency of neutral hydrogen. It showed characteristics suggesting it came from space, not from Earth-based interference, but it never repeated. Despite many searches of the same region, the signal has never been detected again. What was it? The most exciting possibility, though entirely unproven, is an alien civilization broadcasting, perhaps a beacon that sweeps across the sky like a lighthouse, only occasionally pointing toward Earth. But why hasn't it been seen again? Other explanations invoke rare astrophysical phenomena, or perhaps satellites passing through the beam, though these too have challenges. 47 years later, the WOW signal remains unexplained. For a brief moment, our radio telescope heard something extraordinary from the stars, and then it was gone. Rogue waves tower over the ocean, and their unpredictability is only partially understood. Sailors have told stories for centuries of monster waves that appear without warning, massive walls of water that dwarf surrounding waves, towering 30 meters or more, capable of sinking large ships. Scientists dismissed these tales until the instruments began recording them. Rogue waves are real. One famous wave was measured by an oil platform in the North Sea in 1995, rising 26 meters high, more than twice the height of surrounding waves. How do they form? Ocean waves are complex, a mixture of many different frequencies and directions. Usually, they combine randomly, sometimes reinforcing to create a larger wave, sometimes cancelling, but occasionally waves align perfectly, all their crests combining constructively to create a single enormous wave. But linear theory can't fully explain the tallest rogue waves. Non-linear effects matter. In deep ocean, waves can interact in ways that focus energy, pulling energy from surrounding waves to create a localized peak. Ocean currents also play roles. When waves encounter an opposing current, they steepen and slow, piling up into larger waves. Despite progress, predicting rogue waves remains difficult. They appear seemingly at random in otherwise moderate conditions. Understanding rogue wave formation better could save lives, but the ocean's complexity means some mystery remains. Quantum enigmas? We descend now into the quantum realm, where reality becomes strange, where observation affects outcomes, and where our everyday intuitions completely fail. Wave-particle duality shows light and matter as both particles and waves, and we don't fully understand why. Shine light through two narrow slits, and it creates an interference pattern on a screen beyond, alternating bright and dark bands. This is what waves do. Light must be a wave. But shine light on a metal surface and it knocks out electrons in discrete packets, as though light consists of particles, photons, each with a specific energy. Light must be particles. These experiments seem contradictory, but both are correct. Light behaves as waves when we're not looking, spreading out, interfering with itself. But when we measure it, it appears as a localized particle. The same is true for electrons, atoms, even large molecules. Send electrons one at a time through the double-slit apparatus. Each electron hits the screen at a single point, like a particle. But do this many times, and the points build up an interference pattern, as though each electron passed through both slits simultaneously as a wave and interfered with itself. Quantum mechanics describes this mathematically with wave functions, probability waves that contain all possible states of the particle. When you measure, the wave function collapses, and you find the particle in one definite state. But what is the wave function? Is it real? Does it represent something physical? Or is it just a tool for calculating probabilities? Why does measurement collapse it? These questions have no agreed upon answers. After a century, We can predict quantum behavior with stunning accuracy, but still debate what that behavior means. Quantum entanglement links particles across space in ways Einstein called spooky. Create two particles in such a way that their properties are correlated. Say, they spin in opposite directions. Separate them by any distance. Now, measure one particle's spin. Instantly, you know the other particle's spin. This might not seem strange. They were opposite from the start. But quantum mechanics says neither particle had a definite spin until you measured it. Before measurement, each existed in a superposition, spinning both ways simultaneously. The act of measuring one instantly determines the other's state, no matter how far apart they are. This phenomenon, called entanglement, has been verified in countless experiments. Measure particle A, and particle B's state becomes fixed, seemingly faster than light could travel between them. Einstein despised this implication. He called it spooky action at a distance. In 1964, physicist John Bell developed a mathematical test that could distinguish between quantum mechanics and hidden variable theories. Those experiments have been performed many times since, with increasingly sophisticated methods closing potential loopholes. The results consistently support quantum mechanics. The entanglement is real, at least according to our current best understanding. No information travels between the particles, so this doesn't violate relativity. Yet the correlation exists, immediate and perfect. Entanglement remains one of quantum theory's deepest mysteries, a feature of reality that works without our understanding why. The observer effect suggests measurement changes reality, but what counts as observation? In quantum mechanics, the act of measuring a system affects its state. Before you measure an electron's position, it doesn't have a definite position. It exists in a superposition of many possible positions. When you measure, the wave function collapses to one specific position. This is the observer effect, and it raises profound questions. What counts as observation? Does it require a conscious observer, a human looking at a readout? Or does any interaction, any particle bumping into another, count as measurement? If consciousness is required, then quantum mechanics implies mind plays a fundamental role in physical reality. This seems mystical. Most physicists reject it. But if consciousness isn't special, if any interaction collapses wave functions, then why don't we see quantum superpositions of large objects? The standard answer involves decoherence. Large objects interact with countless particles in their environment. These interactions rapidly collapse superpositions, leaving large objects in definite states. But this doesn't solve the measurement problem completely. Different interpretations of quantum mechanics give different answers. None is universally accepted. The measurement problem asks why we see definite outcomes when quantum mechanics predicts superpositions. Here is the central puzzle. The equations describe systems in superposition, existing in multiple states simultaneously. But when we look, we always see a single, definite outcome. Why? Before measurement, a particle evolves smoothly, existing in a superposition of all possible states. Then measurement happens. The wave function collapses. The particle suddenly has a definite position or momentum. But the equations don't include wave function collapse. Collapse is added as a separate rule. This feels ad hoc. Many physicists have tried to solve the measurement problem. The Copenhagen interpretation essentially refuses to solve it. It says the wave function represents our knowledge. Don't ask what the particle was doing before measurement. The many worlds interpretation says wave functions never collapse. When you measure, the universe splits into branches, one for each possible outcome. You perceive one branch, but the others are equally real. Objective collapse theories propose modifications where wave functions spontaneously collapse due to gravity or some other physical process. The measurement problem touches the boundary between quantum and classical. After nearly a century, it remains unresolved. Quantum tunneling allows particles to pass through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. In classical physics, if you throw a ball at a wall with less energy than needed to break through, it bounces back. Not so in quantum mechanics. A particle encountering a barrier has a probability of appearing on the other side, even if it lacks the energy to cross. This phenomenon, quantum tunneling, arises from wave-particle duality. The particle's wave function extends into and through the barrier. Most of the time, measurement finds the particle bouncing back, but occasionally, the particle tunnels through. Quantum tunneling is essential to many processes. Stars shine because of it. Fusion in the sun's core requires atomic nuclei to overcome electromagnetic repulsion and merge. Classical physics says the sun's core isn't hot enough for this, but tunneling allows nuclei to merge anyway, releasing energy. Without tunneling, stars wouldn't ignite and we wouldn't exist. Electronics use tunneling. Transistors in computer chips rely on electrons tunneling through thin barriers. Recently, scientists discovered tunneling might play roles in biology. Enzymes may use tunneling to transfer electrons or protons across molecules, speeding up reactions. DNA mutations might arise partly from protons tunneling between base pairs. The mechanism of tunneling is mathematically understood, but explaining it intuitively remains difficult. How does a particle get from one side of a barrier to the other without ever having enough energy to be inside the barrier? Quantum superposition allows particles to be in multiple states simultaneously until measured. A quantum particle can spin clockwise and counterclockwise at the same time. It can be here and there simultaneously. It can be both dead and alive, as Schrödinger's famous thought experiment with a cat illustrates. This is superposition, one of quantum mechanics' most counterintuitive features. Before measurement, a particle doesn't have definite properties. It exists in a combination of all possible states, each with a certain probability. The wave function mathematically describes this combination. Measurement forces the particle to choose one state, collapsing the superposition. But why? And what determines which state gets chosen? The answer involves probability. Quantum mechanics can't predict which specific outcome will occur, only the odds of each possibility. This fundamental randomness troubled Einstein, who famously said, "God does not play dice." But experiments consistently confirm the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics. Superposition isn't just theoretical. It's been demonstrated with photons, electrons, atoms, even small molecules. Researchers are working to create superpositions of larger and larger objects, testing the boundaries between quantum and classical physics. The practical implications are profound. Quantum computers exploit superposition to perform certain calculations exponentially faster than classical computers. But the conceptual implications are equally striking. Superposition challenges our notion of reality itself, suggesting that before observation, particles don't have definite properties, just potentials waiting to become actual. Biological mysteries. Returning to the realm of living things, we find that even in our own bodies, mysteries abound. The placebo effect reliably improves health, but how beliefs translate into physical changes remains partially mysterious. Give a patient a sugar pill, tell them it's a powerful painkiller, and often their pain actually decreases. Give another patient a sham surgery, just an incision that heals without any real procedure, and sometimes their condition improves as much as those who receive real surgery. This is the placebo effect, and it's remarkably powerful. Studies show placebos can reduce pain, alleviate depression, improve Parkinson's symptoms, even affect immune responses and heart rate. But how does belief heal? We know some mechanisms. Brain imaging shows that placebos activate the same pain control regions as real painkillers. The brain releases endogenous opioids, natural morphine-like chemicals, when a person expects pain relief. Dopamine systems involved in reward and motivation respond to placebos in Parkinson's disease. The prefrontal cortex, involved in expectations and beliefs, becomes active during placebo responses. But other aspects remain mysterious. Why do placebos work better when doctors are confident and caring? Why do expensive placebos work better than cheap ones? Why do some people respond strongly while others don't? The mind-body connection revealed by placebos is profound. Our beliefs, expectations, and the social context of treatment demonstrably change our biology. Understanding the placebo effect better could help us design more effective treatments and understand how subjective experience influences objective health. Why we yawn is still debated among scientists. It's one of the most universal behaviors. Humans yawn before birth. Fish yawn, birds yawn. Nearly every vertebrate yawns. It's contagious. Seeing or even thinking about yawning makes you more likely to yawn yourself. And yet, we don't definitively know why we do it. The oldest hypothesis proposes yawning increases oxygen intake when we need it. But studies show yawning doesn't change blood oxygen levels significantly. A newer idea suggests yawning cools the brain. The deep intake of air and stretching of the jaw might increase blood flow to the head, cooling the brain like a radiator. Studies show holding warm packs to the head increases yawning, cold packs decrease it. But this doesn't explain contagious yawning. That phenomenon might involve empathy and social bonding. Brain regions associated with understanding others' mental states activate. When we see someone yawn, people with autism show less contagious yawning. Perhaps contagious yawning helps groups synchronize sleep-wake cycles. Another theory proposes yawning promotes alertness, stretching the jaw and face muscles, increasing circulation. Most likely yawning serves multiple functions, or perhaps our explanations are still incomplete. A behavior so ancient, so widespread, and we're still not entirely sure what it does. Why organisms age remains incompletely understood. Every complex organism ages. Cells accumulate damage. Tissues lose function. Eventually, systems fail and death follows. Why? From an evolutionary perspective, this seems inefficient. Natural selection should favor organisms that live forever, continually reproducing. Yet aging is universal. The leading explanation is that evolution doesn't care about post-reproductive lifespan. Genes that benefit early reproduction get selected, even if they cause problems later. Other genes might be neutral in youth, but cause aging-related damage over time. They're not selected against because their effects appear after reproduction. At the cellular level, aging involves many processes. Telomeres, protective caps on chromosome ends, shorten with each cell division. Eventually, cells can't divide anymore. DNA accumulates mutations. Proteins misfold and aggregate. Mitochondria become dysfunctional. All these contribute to aging, but which is primary? Is there a master regulator, or is aging the sum of multiple independent processes? Research on organisms with unusual aging patterns offers clues. Some jellyfish appear biologically immortal. Naked mole rats live 10 times longer than similar-sized rodents and rarely get cancer. Studying them might reveal mechanisms we could target to slow human aging. But we still don't have a unified theory of why aging happens at the fundamental level. Cancer's complexity means we still can't fully predict or cure it. Cancer is not one disease, but hundreds. At its core, cancer involves cells that divide uncontrollably, ignore signals to stop, evade immune destruction, and spread to distant organs. But the details differ enormously. We understand cancer far better than decades ago. We know mutations in specific genes drive cancer development. We know cells must accumulate multiple mutations before becoming cancerous. We know cancers evolve, developing resistance to treatments. We've developed targeted therapies and immunotherapies that improve outcomes. But mysteries remain. Why do some people with identical mutations develop cancer while others don't? Why do some cancers respond dramatically to treatment while genetically similar cancers don't? How do cancer cells metastasize? We're discovering that the tumor microenvironment profoundly affects cancer behavior. Cancers manipulate surrounding cells to create favorable conditions. We're learning that cancer stem cells might drive growth and recurrence. But translating this knowledge into cures remains challenging. Evolution works against us. Each tumor is unique, a product of random mutations and selection pressures. Despite enormous progress, cancer remains partially mysterious, a complex adaptive system we're learning to fight but not yet conquer. Autoimmune diseases attack the body, but what triggers them is often unclear. The immune system protects us from pathogens, distinguishing self from non-self. But sometimes this recognition fails. The immune system attacks the body's own tissues. This is autoimmunity. More than 80 autoimmune diseases exist. Why? Genetics plays a role. Certain gene variants increase risk, but genes alone don't explain it. Environmental triggers must also matter. Infections are suspects. Some bacterial or viral proteins resemble human proteins. The immune system attacks the pathogen, then cross-reacts with similar self-proteins. Gut bacteria influence immune development. Disruptions to the microbiome might contribute to autoimmunity. Some autoimmune diseases are more common in industrialized countries, suggesting lifestyle and environmental exposures matter. The hygiene hypothesis proposes that reduced exposure to microbes in childhood prevents proper immune training, but this doesn't explain all patterns. Sex matters too. Most autoimmune diseases disproportionately affect women. Despite all this, we can't predict who will develop autoimmune disease or fully explain why immune tolerance breaks down. Treatments mostly suppress the immune system broadly, reducing symptoms but not curing the underlying problem. Synesthesia mixes senses in ways we don't fully understand. For some people, hearing music triggers colors. Numbers have distinct personalities. Words taste like specific foods. This is synesthesia, where one sense automatically triggers another. It's not metaphor. Synesthetes genuinely perceive these cross-sensory experiences. About 4% of people have some form. What causes it? Brain imaging shows synesthetes have unusual connectivity. Regions processing visual form are overconnected to regions processing color. This might arise from pruning failures during development. Babies might experience synesthesia-like blending. As the brain develops, connections are pruned, senses become separate. In synesthetes, some connections remain. Another theory proposes disinhibited feedback. Higher-order brain regions send information back to sensory regions. In synesthetes, this feedback might be excessive, causing activation of one sensory area to spread to others. Synesthesia challenges our understanding of how senses are organized. It shows that perception is constructed, that the brain can be wired differently, producing experiences utterly foreign to most people. Earth and atmospheric mysteries. Our own planet holds secrets, phenomena that occur all around us, yet resist complete explanation. Earth's magnetic field reverses periodically, and we don't fully understand why. Earth's magnetic field protects us from solar radiation, but this field isn't stable. The magnetic north and south poles slowly drift, and periodically they flip, reversing completely. Geological evidence shows hundreds of reversals. The last one happened 780,000 years ago. The timing is irregular. The field is currently weakening and shifting in ways that might signal an approaching reversal, or might just be normal variation. We can't predict when the next flip will happen. The cause relates to Earth's core. The outer core is liquid iron, constantly flowing, driven by heat. This motion generates electric currents, which create the magnetic field. It's a self-sustaining dynamo. But the flow is chaotic. Computer simulations can create magnetic fields that flip, but we can't predict specific reversals. During a reversal, the field weakens dramatically. The flip might take hundreds or thousands of years. During this time, Earth loses much of its protection from radiation. Would this harm life? Perhaps. Some extinction events correlate with reversals. Modern technology would be vulnerable. Satellites, power grids, and GPS systems depend on a stable field. Ice ages cycle with surprising regularity, but the precise mechanisms aren't fully understood. For 2.5 million years, Earth has cycled through ice ages and warmer periods. Ice sheets advance, covering continents, then retreat. The cycle repeats roughly every 100,000 years. We live in an interglacial now. What drives these cycles? Serbian scientist Milutin Milankovic proposed that orbital variations cause ice ages. Earth's orbit changes in predictable ways over tens of thousands of years. The orbit's shape varies with a period of about 100,000 years. The tilt of Earth's axis cycles every 41,000 years, and the wobble has a period of about 26,000 years. These cycles affect how much sunlight reaches different latitudes. The theory matches Ice Age timing reasonably well, but it has problems. The orbital changes are small, only a few percent variation in solar input. Something must amplify the signal. Feedback mechanisms do this. Ice reflects sunlight, so more ice means cooler temperatures and more ice. Carbon dioxide levels change, amplifying temperature shifts. But we don't fully understand how these feedbacks link to orbital cycles. Why the 100,000-year cycle dominates now is especially puzzling. The Ice Age cycles likely result from multiple interacting factors. How lightning forms in detail remains mysterious. Everyone has seen lightning. We know it's an electrical discharge. But exactly how it initiates and propagates is still debated. Thunderstorms contain ice particles and water droplets colliding, separating charges. Larger particles tend to become negatively charged, smaller, positively charged. Updrafts and downdrafts separate these charges vertically. Eventually, the electric field becomes strong enough to ionize air, creating a conductive path. This is the lightning channel, and it forms in a complex manner. A stepped leader propagates downward from the cloud in jerky steps. Meanwhile, positive streamers reach upward from the ground. When they connect, a return stroke surges up toward the cloud, the bright flash we see. But many details puzzle scientists. How does the leader form? The electric field in clouds should be too weak to ionize air on its own. Something must help. Cosmic rays might seed ionization. Why does lightning branch the way it does? Why do some storms produce more lightning than others? Despite being common, lightning guards its secrets. Rogue waves appear in the ocean, and predicting them remains difficult. Sailors have told stories of monster waves appearing without warning. Scientists dismissed these until instruments recorded them. Rogue waves are real, massive walls of water that dwarf surrounding waves. One of the most famous documented cases, the Draupner wave measured by an oil platform in the North Sea in January 1995, rose approximately 26 meters high, more than twice the significant wave height at the time. How do they form? Ocean waves are complex mixtures of many frequencies. Occasionally waves align perfectly, crests combining to create a single enormous wave. But this doesn't explain the tallest rogues. Non-linear effects matter. Waves can interact to focus energy, creating localized peaks. Ocean currents play roles. Waves encountering opposing currents steepen and pile up. Underwater topography can focus wave energy. Despite progress, predicting rogue waves remains difficult. They appear seemingly at random. Understanding them better could save lives. The Bermuda Triangle's reputation suggests mysterious disappearances, but is it really unusual? An area of the Atlantic bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has a reputation for strange disappearances. Ships and aircraft supposedly vanish without trace. But is the Bermuda Triangle genuinely anomalous? Investigations suggest not. Weather in the region can be violent. The Gulf Stream flows through, a powerful current that can disperse wreckage. The ocean floor includes deep trenches. Many supposed disappearances have mundane explanations or occurred outside the triangle. The most famous case, Flight 19, involved 5 Navy bombers that vanished during training. Investigation revealed the flight leader was likely disoriented. Statistical analyses show the triangle has no more disappearances than other heavily traveled regions. Insurance companies don't charge higher rates. The mystery appears to be more about human psychology than actual phenomena. Missing ordinary matter in the universe puzzles cosmologists. When scientists calculate how much ordinary matter, the atoms and molecules that make up stars, planets, and gas, should exist based on Big Bang nucleosynthesis, they get a number. When they add up all the matter they can detect, the number is smaller. Some ordinary matter is missing. Not dark matter, that's separate. This is baryonic matter that should be there but isn't observed. Where is it? Some likely exists in warm, hot, intergalactic medium, diffuse gas between galaxies heated to temperatures that make it hard to detect. It doesn't emit much light, doesn't absorb much, but it's there, revealed by subtle absorption lines in distant quasar spectra. But even accounting for this, some matter seems unaccounted for. Perhaps it exists in forms we haven't characterized fully, in very diffuse gas, in molecular clouds, or in objects too small or faint to detect easily. The missing baryon problem is less severe than dark matter, but it reminds us that even ordinary matter, the stuff we understand best, has mysteries. Animal behavior puzzles. The creatures that share our world perform feats that science struggles to fully explain. How migrating animals navigate vast distances remains partially mysterious. Arctic terns fly from Arctic to Antarctic and back, 70,000 kilometers. Monarch butterflies fly from Canada to specific groves in Mexico. Sea turtles return to exact beaches where they hatched. Salmon navigate to the precise stream of their birth. How? Animals use multiple cues. The sun and stars provide direction, though this requires an internal clock. Many animals have circadian clocks. Earth's magnetic field offers another compass. Some animals possess magnetoreception, sensing fields through magnetic crystals or quantum effects in light-sensitive proteins. Landmarks and smell help at shorter ranges. But long-distance navigation, especially in animals crossing featureless ocean during first migration, remains puzzling. Genetic programming likely plays a role, but this can't explain all the precision. Animals compensate for winds, avoid obstacles, adjust routes. We're discovering navigation involves multiple redundant systems, but integrating all these cues in simple nervous systems suggests computational abilities we don't fully understand. The homing instinct allows animals to return from unfamiliar locations. Take a dog far from home to a place it's never been, and often it finds its way back. Pigeons return to their loft from hundreds of kilometers away. For pigeons, we know part of the answer: magnetoreception and sun compass navigation, plus learned landmarks. But this doesn't explain all instances. Cats returning home from new locations couldn't have learned landmarks. Some explanations involve low-frequency sounds or infrasound traveling long distances. Animals might sense and use these to orient. Others suggest smell carried on wind. Or perhaps animals create mental maps from brief exposures. Psi has been proposed but lacks evidence. Most likely, homing involves multiple sensory inputs and internal navigation systems we haven't fully characterized. Animals process information in ways that seem mysterious because we don't share their sensory world. Mass strandings of whales occur and causes aren't always clear. Occasionally dozens or hundreds of whales beach themselves, swimming into shallow water where they die if not rescued. What drives them? Social structure plays a role. Many toothed whales live in tight groups. If one beaches, others follow. But why did the first go ashore? Illness, parasites, or disorientation might cause initial stranding. Whales rely on echolocation. In shallow, gently sloping beaches, echolocation might not work well. Geomagnetic anomalies could confuse animals using magnetoreception. Some strandings correlate with magnetic anomalies, but not all. Human activities contribute. Military sonar can interfere with echolocation and cause injury. Underwater noise pollution might play roles. Natural factors, storms or prey movements, could drive whales into unfamiliar waters. Each event likely has multiple contributing factors. But we can't always identify clear causes. Some strandings remain mysterious. Collective intelligence in insect colonies emerges without central control. An ant colony operates like a superorganism. It builds complex nests, farms fungus, wages wars, adapts to environments. But there's no leader. Each ant follows simple rules, responding to chemical signals. From individual interactions, collective intelligence emerges. This fascinates scientists, but isn't completely understood. How do simple rules produce complex adaptive behavior? Ants finding food leave pheromone trails. Other ants follow stronger trails, reinforcing them. But how do colonies balance exploration and exploitation? Individual variation helps. Some ants are more exploratory. The ratio changes with colony needs, though the mechanism isn't fully clear. Similarly, how do colonies allocate workers to different tasks without a manager? Task allocation arises from individual thresholds and local interactions. Bee swarms deciding on new nest sites follow decentralized processes. Scouts visit sites, return, dance to advertise them. Eventually, enough bees commit to one site. Researchers model these with algorithms, but natural colonies outperform our models in robustness. Why cats purr is still debated. Cats purr when content, when nursing, when greeting. but they also purr when injured, stressed, or dying. This dual context puzzles researchers. Purring involves rhythmic contraction of muscles around the larynx, creating vibrations at 25 to 100 hertz. But why? One hypothesis. Purring promotes healing. The vibration frequency overlaps with frequencies known to promote bone density and tissue repair. Purring might help cats heal or strengthen bones during rest. But this doesn't explain purring in social contexts. Another idea, purring is communication, a signal of non-threatening intent. Cats purr when they want attention. The frequency might be soothing. Kittens purr while nursing. But this doesn't explain purring when injured. Perhaps purring serves multiple functions, or the mechanism was selected for one purpose and now serves others. Or maybe purring when stressed is self-soothing. We can describe the mechanics, but the evolutionary origin and primary function remain unclear. Some animals may be sensitive to earthquake precursors, but clear evidence remains elusive. For centuries, reports describe animals behaving strangely before earthquakes. Dogs barking, birds fleeing, snakes emerging days before the ground shakes. Anecdotal evidence abounds, but scientific confirmation has proven difficult. Could animals sense something humans can't? Several mechanisms seem plausible. Earthquakes can generate various precursor phenomena, changes in electromagnetic fields, release of radon gas, ground vibrations too subtle for human senses, shifts in groundwater or static electricity. Animals with more sensitive hearing, smell, or electrosensitivity might detect these. But controlled studies are difficult. Earthquakes are unpredictable. Post-earthquake surveys rely on memory, which is unreliable. People remember unusual behavior that preceded a quake, but forget similar behavior that didn't. Some studies claim correlations, others find none. Without understanding the specific cue animals might detect, validation is hard. The possibility remains intriguing. If animals can predict earthquakes, even seconds in advance, understanding how could save lives. Time and space paradoxes. We turn now to the fundamental structure of reality itself, where time and space twist into paradoxes. Why time flows in one direction remains unexplained at the fundamental level. You remember the past. You don't remember the future. Eggs break. They don't unbreak. Time seems to have an arrow pointing forward, but at the fundamental level, the laws of physics don't distinguish past from future. So where does time's arrow come from? The leading answer invokes entropy. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy always increases. This gives time a direction. But why was entropy low in the past? Why did the universe start in a highly ordered state, allowing entropy to increase ever since? We don't know. The initial low entropy state is the real mystery. Some suggest the arrow of time is an illusion, that the block universe view, where past, present, and future all exist equally, is correct. But this doesn't explain why we remember past and not future. Time remains one of physics' deepest mysteries. Whether time travel to the past is possible divides physicists. General relativity contains solutions that allow time travel. Rotating black holes create closed time-like curves. Wormholes could theoretically be used for time travel, but these require exotic matter with negative energy, which might not exist. They might be unstable, and they raise paradoxes. The grandfather paradox. If you travel back and kill your grandfather before your parent was born, you'd never exist. So you couldn't travel back. Proposed resolutions include the Novikov self-consistency principle, which says only self-consistent timelines can occur, or Many worlds. Traveling back creates a new timeline. These are speculative. We've never observed time travel. Stephen Hawking proposed the chronology protection conjecture, suggesting physics conspires to prevent time travel. Time travel to the future is possible and confirmed. Travel fast or near strong gravity, and time slows for you. Return, and you've jumped forward. But the past remains elusive. The Fermi paradox asks where all the aliens are. The universe is vast, containing hundreds of billions of galaxies. Many stars have planets. Many planets are likely habitable. If life arises readily and evolves toward intelligence, the universe should be teeming with civilizations. They should be visible. But we see nothing. Where is everybody? Many solutions are proposed. Perhaps we're alone. Life is rare. Perhaps civilizations destroy themselves quickly. Perhaps space travel is harder than we think. Perhaps they exist but are silent. Perhaps we're in a cosmic zoo. Perhaps advanced civilizations transcend physical form. Perhaps we're looking wrong. Or perhaps the great filter, some challenge nearly impossible to overcome, lies ahead. Each solution has problems. None is universally accepted. The Fermi paradox remains one of the great unanswered questions. Whether faster-than-light travel is possible. Challenge it. Relativity. Einstein's relativity says nothing with mass can reach light speed. Doing so would require infinite energy. But physicists have found theoretical loopholes. The Alcubierre drive would expand space-time behind a spacecraft and contract it ahead. The spacecraft surfs a wave of space-time, but it requires exotic matter with negative energy, and energy requirements are staggering. Wormholes offer another possibility, tunnels through space-time. But they also likely require exotic matter and might be unstable. Quantum entanglement allows correlations faster than light, but can't transmit signals. Most physicists consider faster than light travel impossible with known physics. Until we discover new physics, light speed remains a cosmic speed limit. Whether extra dimensions exist beyond our three of space and one of time is unproven. Some theories, particularly string theory, propose extra spatial dimensions. In string theory, consistency requires 10 or 11 dimensions. Where are they? They might be compactified, curled up so small, we can't detect them. If extra dimensions exist, they could explain why gravity is so weak. Perhaps it spreads into extra dimensions while other forces remain confined. But string theory makes few testable predictions. The Large Hadron Collider looked for signs that particles vanish into extra dimensions. None found. The question remains open, a prediction of some theories but not confirmed. The multiverse hypothesis suggests infinite parallel universes, but we may never confirm it. Quantum mechanics' many worlds interpretation proposes every quantum event spawns parallel universes. Cosmic inflation might create bubble universes with different laws. If other universes are causally disconnected, we can never observe them. This might make the multiverse unfalsifiable, placing it outside science. Proponents argue indirect evidence could support it. Patterns in cosmic background radiation might bear signatures of other universes colliding with ours. The fine tuning of constants could be explained by multiverse. But skeptics note these arguments are philosophical. The multiverse emerges naturally from theories like inflation and quantum mechanics. It's not invented to solve problems, but is a consequence. Whether it exists might be fundamentally unknowable. Unexplained human abilities. Looking at our own species, we find abilities and phenomena that resist simple explanation. Intuition allows snap judgments that are often correct, but how it works is unclear. You meet someone and instantly feel you shouldn't trust them. You have a hunch about a decision that proves right. You sense danger before it manifests. This is intuition. Psychologists agree it's real, though explaining it is difficult. One theory, intuition is rapid subconscious processing. Your brain detects patterns below conscious awareness, then produces a feeling without explaining the reasoning. Studies show experts make correct, intuitive judgments because they've internalized vast experience. A chess master sees the board and knows the right move. A doctor senses something is wrong before tests confirm it. But intuition isn't infallible. It's subject to biases and mistakes. Neuroscience is beginning to map involved brain regions, but the detailed mechanisms, how vast information condenses into a single feeling, remain mysterious. Intuition blurs the line between thought and feeling, conscious and unconscious. The mind-body connection allows thoughts to affect physical health. Stress weakens the immune system. Positive emotions improve recovery. Chronic anger increases heart disease risk. Meditation changes brain structure and gene expression. The mind influences the body profoundly, yet mechanisms are only partially understood. We know stress hormones affect immune cells, inflammation, cardiovascular function. We know the nervous system communicates with the immune system. We know psychological states affect behavior, sleep, diet, which affect health. But the complete picture is complex. How do vague feelings translate into specific biological effects? Psychoneuroimmunology studies these connections. Social support improves health. Loneliness increases disease risk. Evolutionary psychologists propose our minds evolve to respond to social context. Being isolated signals danger, activating defense systems. Being supported signals safety. This makes evolutionary sense but doesn't explain detailed mechanisms. Savant syndrome grants extraordinary abilities despite developmental challenges. Some individuals with autism or brain injuries display remarkable skills, calculating vast numbers instantly, memorizing books after one reading, creating detailed artworks from memory, playing complex music by ear. These savants possess abilities far beyond normal, yet may struggle with basic life skills. How? Savant skills typically involve memory, calculation, or spatial abilities. One theory, savant brains access raw sensory data or computational processes normally occurring unconsciously. Filters might be reduced, allowing direct access. Another idea, savant skills develop through intense narrow focus. Many savants practice obsessively. Brain imaging shows unusual connectivity or compensatory development, but we don't fully understand why specific skills emerge or how to explain feats that seem computationally impossible. Some people possess photographic memory, but how it works is unclear. A few individuals can glance at a page and recall it perfectly, read it back word for word. This is eidetic memory, exceedingly rare in adults. Most claiming photographic memory use memory techniques, but a few seem genuinely able to create and recall mental images with extraordinary fidelity. How? Memory normally involves encoding, storage, and retrieval, with information transformed at each stage. But eidetic memory might involve visual processing areas, holding images longer and in more detail. Brain imaging of memory champions shows intense activity in visual and spatial regions. But eidetic memory seems different, more automatic. Whether photographic memory, as popularly imagined, exists is debated, but some people clearly have far more vivid visual memory than others. Synesthesia has been covered earlier in this script, placeholder to avoid repetition. Claims of ESP have never been scientifically validated. Stories of telepathy, seeing distant events, predicting the future have persisted. Controlled scientific tests of ESP have consistently failed to show effects beyond chance. Most scientists conclude ESP doesn't exist. Yet some studies report small positive results, and a few researchers continue investigating. The challenge is reproducibility. If ESP exists, it should be demonstrable consistently. This hasn't happened. Skeptics note belief in ESP correlates with misunderstanding probability. Humans see connections that aren't there, remember hits, and forget misses. Still, some anomalies persist. Remote viewing studies, Ganzfeld experiments, occasionally show results slightly above chance. Proponents argue for further research. Critics argue the effects are statistical noise or methodological flaws. The debate is contentious, with most mainstream scientists considering it settled. Particle physics mysteries. We dive now into the smallest scales, where particles dance according to rules we've discovered but don't fully comprehend. The Higgs field gives particles mass, but we don't know why it exists. In the Standard Model, particles acquire mass through interaction with the Higgs field. In 2012, the Large Hadron Collider detected the Higgs boson, confirming the field's existence. But questions remain. Why does the Higgs field have the value it does? The field's strength determines particle masses. If it were different, the universe would be dramatically different. This is the hierarchy problem. The Higgs mass should be enormous based on quantum corrections, yet it's relatively light. Something must cancel these corrections. Supersymmetry would provide a mechanism, but we haven't found supersymmetric particles. Maybe the Higgs isn't fundamental. Some theories propose it's composite, but we don't know. Another mystery: why does the field have its vacuum expectation value? This determines particle masses. The Standard Model doesn't explain. These questions might be answered by physics beyond the Standard Model. Neutrinos have mass, but we don't know what it is or why it's so tiny. For decades, neutrinos were thought massless, but experiments detecting neutrinos from the Sun found fewer than expected. This solar neutrino problem was solved when physicists realized neutrinos oscillate, changing between three types. Oscillation requires mass. What gives neutrinos mass? In the Standard Model, the Higgs mechanism gives mass to other particles, but neutrinos are left-handed. The Higgs requires both left and right-handed particles. Maybe right-handed neutrinos exist, but don't interact, sterile neutrinos. Or maybe neutrinos get mass through a different mechanism. Another puzzle. Neutrino masses are at least 1,000,000 times smaller than the electron. Why? This suggests something fundamentally different. Some theories propose neutrinos are Majorana particles, their own antiparticles, which would explain tiny mass through a seesaw mechanism. But we don't know if neutrinos are Majorana. Proton decay has never been observed, but some theories predict it should eventually occur. Protons are incredibly stable. As far as we can tell from all observations to date, they last forever. But some grand unified theories, which attempt to unify the fundamental forces, predict protons should eventually decay, transforming into lighter particles. The predicted lifetime in these theories is enormous, far longer than the universe's current age, perhaps 10 to the power of 34 years or more. But with enough protons, you might observe one decaying. Experiments have placed enormous tanks of pure water deep underground, watched by sensitive detectors, waiting for a single proton to decay. Decades of observation have seen nothing. This places lower limits on proton lifetime, ruling out some theories. But the possibility remains. If protons decay, even on timescales of 10 to the 35 years, it would mean that eventually all matter would disappear. Atoms would cease to exist. The universe's far future would be even stranger than we imagine. Why matter dominates over antimatter in the universe is unknown. The Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter. They should have annihilated, leaving only radiation. But here we are, made of matter. The antimatter is missing. For every billion particle-antiparticle pairs that annihilated, one extra matter particle survived. That tiny imbalance is why anything exists. But what caused it? This violation of matter-antimatter symmetry, called baryogenesis, remains one of physics' deepest mysteries. Some theories invoke processes in the early universe that slightly favored matter over antimatter, but we don't know the details. Quark confinement means we can never see individual quarks. Protons and neutrons are made of quarks, bound together by the strong force. But you can never pull quarks apart to observe one individually. Try to separate them, and the energy you put in creates new quarks, forming new bound particles. This phenomenon, called quark confinement, is observed but not fully understood from first principles. We know the strong force behaves counterintuitively. At short distances, it's weak, allowing quarks to move almost freely inside protons. At longer distances, it becomes stronger, binding quarks together. This asymptotic freedom and confinement are described mathematically by quantum chromodynamics. But deriving confinement rigorously from the theory remains an unsolved problem in mathematics and physics. The strong force holds atomic nuclei together, but we don't fully understand it. Inside every atomic nucleus, protons and neutrons are crammed together. Protons, all positively charged, should repel each other electromagnetically. The electromagnetic force at such short distances should be enormous, blowing the nucleus apart, but it doesn't. The strong nuclear force carried by particles called gluons binds quarks together inside protons and neutrons. A residual strong force holds protons and neutrons together in nuclei. We can describe this mathematically through quantum chromodynamics, but calculating the behavior of the strong force, especially in complex nuclei, is incredibly difficult. We understand the rules, but applying them to predict nuclear properties from first principles remains challenging. Additional profound mysteries. As we near the end of our journey, there are still more enigmas worth contemplating as you drift toward rest. Why we experience the present moment as special remains philosophically puzzling. You feel like you're living in now, in the present moment. The past feels gone. The future hasn't arrived yet. But physics doesn't distinguish between past, present, and future. Einstein's relativity treats time as a dimension similar to space. All moments exist equally in the block universe. Yet we experience time flowing, with the present moment having a special quality. Why? This is sometimes called the problem of the now. Is the flow of time real, or is it an illusion created by our consciousness? Our memories only point backward, our anticipation only forward, creating the sensation of moving through time. But fundamentally, what makes now special? Philosophers and physicists have debated this for decades. Some argue consciousness creates the present moment. Others suggest it's an emergent property of how information is processed. Still others maintain it's an illusion, that all moments exist eternally, and our perception of flow is simply how beings embedded in time experience reality. The measurement problem in quantum mechanics has generated multiple interpretations, none universally accepted. We've touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing how profound this mystery is. When we measure a quantum system, we get a definite result. But before measurement, the system exists in superposition. How does measurement cause this collapse? The Copenhagen interpretation says, don't ask what happens between measurements. The many worlds interpretation says the universe splits. The pilot wave theory says particles have definite positions guided by a quantum wave. Objective collapse theories propose spontaneous collapse. Each interpretation makes the same predictions for experiments, so we can't distinguish them empirically. This means we may never know which, if any, correctly describes reality. The measurement problem might be permanently undecidable, a limit to human knowledge imposed not by technology, but by the structure of reality itself. Vacuum energy presents one of physics' greatest mysteries. Quantum field theory predicts that empty space, the vacuum, should be filled with virtual particles constantly appearing and disappearing due to quantum fluctuations. This would give the vacuum an energy density. When physicists calculate what this energy density should be using quantum mechanics, they get a number that's roughly 10 to the power of 120 times larger than what we observe through cosmological measurements. This is called the vacuum catastrophe, the worst prediction in the history of physics. Why is the vacuum energy so much smaller than predicted? We don't know. Dark energy might be related to vacuum energy, but the numbers don't match. Something must cancel most of the vacuum energy, leaving just the tiny amount we observe. But we don't know what or why. This problem sits at the intersection of quantum mechanics and gravity, suggesting our understanding of one or both is incomplete. The origin of the universe's initial conditions remains unexplained. The Big Bang describes how the universe evolved from a hot, dense state. But why did the universe start in that particular state? Why was it so uniform yet with tiny density fluctuations? Why did it have low entropy? Why the specific values of fundamental constants? These initial conditions determined everything that followed. Change them slightly, and you get a completely different universe. But where did these initial conditions come from? Inflation tries to explain some aspects, smoothing the universe and generating fluctuations. But inflation itself requires specific initial conditions. The problem is pushed back, but not solved. Some propose the initial conditions are set by a prior universe in a cyclic cosmology. Others invoke the multiverse, with different bubble universes having different initial conditions. But these don't really explain. They just multiply the mystery. The ultimate origin of our universe's specific initial conditions may be unknowable. The nature of time at the Planck scale is completely mysterious. At extremely small distances, around 10 to the power of minus 35 meters, and extremely short times, around 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds, quantum effects of gravity should become important. This is the Planck scale, where our current theories break down. General relativity describes gravity as curved spacetime. Quantum mechanics describes particles and fields, but combining them creates problems. At the Planck scale, spacetime itself might fluctuate quantum mechanically. Time might not be continuous, but come in discrete chunks, or spacetime might dissolve into something entirely different, a quantum foam of constantly changing topology. Without a theory of quantum gravity, we can't describe what happens at the Planck scale. This means the very nature of space and time at the smallest scales is unknown. Our everyday experience of smooth, continuous time might be an approximation that breaks down when you look closely enough. Why the speed of light has its specific value is unexplained. Light travels at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second in vacuum. This isn't just the speed of light, It's the maximum speed at which information can travel, a fundamental limit built into the structure of space-time. But why this value? Why not twice as fast, or half? In our system of units, the speed of light's value seems arbitrary, but it's related to other fundamental constants through various physical relationships. Changing the speed of light would affect everything. Chemistry, nuclear physics, cosmology, all depend on its value. The fine structure constant, which determines the strength of electromagnetic interactions, depends on the speed of light. If you change one constant, you'd have to change others to keep physics consistent. Some physicists have proposed that the speed of light might have varied in the early universe, solving certain cosmological problems. But evidence for this is weak. For now, the speed of light's value remains a brute fact of nature, unexplained by deeper principles. The arrow of time in thermodynamics creates a symmetry we don't fully understand. We've discussed this, but there's more to say. The second law of thermodynamics, that entropy always increases, is statistical. It doesn't forbid entropy decreasing, just makes it overwhelmingly improbable. But this raises questions. In a box of gas, molecules could spontaneously organize into one corner, decreasing entropy. It's possible, just wildly unlikely. Over infinite time, shouldn't such fluctuations occur? If the universe is infinitely old and infinite in extent, shouldn't we expect to find ourselves in a region that fluctuated into low entropy rather than starting with low entropy at the Big Bang? This is Boltzmann's brain problem. Random fluctuations should more easily produce a single conscious brain with false memories than an entire ordered universe. Yet here we are in a real universe. The resolution might be that the universe isn't infinitely old, that it started with the Big Bang. But this brings us back to why initial entropy was low. The thermodynamic arrow of time, why disorder increases, connects to deep questions about the universe's origin and nature. The cosmological constant problem asks why dark energy is so small yet non-zero. We mentioned the vacuum energy problem. The cosmological constant problem is related but distinct. Einstein introduced the cosmological constant in his equations, a term representing energy inherent to space itself. He later called it his greatest blunder. But observations of accelerating expansion revived it as a potential explanation for dark energy. The problem? The value of the cosmological constant should be huge based on quantum field theory, but it's tiny. Not zero, which would be one kind of mystery, but about 10 to the power of minus 120 times smaller than expected. Why? No known symmetry or principle explains why it should be exactly zero, so it makes sense that it's not. But why so small? This fine-tuning seems to require extraordinary precision. The anthropic principle offers one answer. If the cosmological constant were much larger, the universe would have expanded too fast for galaxies to form. We wouldn't exist. So we necessarily observe a small value. But many scientists find this unsatisfying. There should be a deeper reason, something we're missing about the nature of space, time, and quantum fields. The holographic principle is a theoretical proposal, suggesting reality might have fewer dimensions than it appears. Information theory, applied to black holes, led to a strange proposal. All the information contained in a volume of space might be encoded on its boundary, like a hologram. A three-dimensional image can be encoded on a two-dimensional surface. Similarly, our three-dimensional universe might be a projection from a two-dimensional surface. This holographic principle has deep implications. It suggests that what we perceive as three-dimensional space with gravity might be mathematically equivalent to a theory without gravity living on the boundary. This correspondence, called ADS, CFT duality has been mathematically proven for certain theoretical universes. Whether it applies to our actual universe is unknown, but if it does, it means reality might be fundamentally different from what we perceive. Dimension itself might be emergent, not fundamental. This challenges our basic understanding of space. The holographic principle might be a clue to quantum gravity, hinting that space-time itself emerges from something more basic. Whether mathematics is discovered or invented puzzles philosophers. Mathematics seems to describe the universe with unreasonable effectiveness. The orbits of planets follow mathematical laws. Quantum mechanics is formulated mathematically. Even phenomena discovered long after the mathematics was developed turn out to fit mathematical frameworks. This suggests mathematics is real, existing independently, and we discover it. Platonism holds that mathematical objects, like numbers and shapes, exist in an abstract realm. But this raises questions. Where is this realm? How do we access it? The alternative is that mathematics is invented, a creation of human minds to describe patterns we observe. But then why does it work so well? Why do mathematical structures discovered purely abstractly, with no thought of applications, later turn out to describe physical phenomena? The Mandelbrot set, discovered through pure mathematics, appears in nature. Why? Is mathematics the language of the universe, or just our way of organizing experience? This question sits at the boundary of science, mathematics, and philosophy. The binding problem in neuroscience asks how distributed brain activity creates unified experience. Your experience right now feels unified. You're simultaneously aware of visual and input, sounds, thoughts, emotions, body sensations, all woven together into a single coherent experience. But in your brain, these different aspects are processed in different regions. Vision happens in the occipital lobe, hearing in the temporal lobe, planning in the frontal lobe. How does this distributed activity bind together into unified consciousness? This is the binding problem. Neuroscientists have proposed various mechanisms, perhaps neurons that fire together, synchronized in their activity, create binding. Perhaps feedback connections between different brain regions integrate information. Perhaps there's a specific brain region that serves as a binding site, though none has been conclusively identified. The binding problem is related to the hard problem of consciousness. Even if we understand how neural activity binds together functionally, why is there also a unified subjective experience? Why does integration of information feel like something? The Fermi paradox has many proposed solutions, each with problems. We mentioned this earlier, but the depth of this mystery deserves more attention. If intelligent life is common, we should see evidence. The galaxy is old. Even traveling at a fraction of light speed, a civilization could colonize it in a few million years. A blink on cosmic timescales. We should see Dyson spheres, megastructures harvesting star energy. We should detect radio signals or industrial pollution in exoplanet atmospheres. But we see nothing. The great silence. Proposed solutions. Maybe we're first. Intelligence recently became possible, and we're among the earliest. Maybe intelligence is rare. The jumps from chemistry to life, life to multicellularity, multicellularity to intelligence, each might be incredibly unlikely. Maybe intelligence is common, but civilizations are short-lived, destroying themselves through war, environmental collapse, or AI. Maybe technological civilizations don't expand, staying home or going digital. Maybe they're deliberately silent, hiding or ignoring us. Maybe we're living in a simulation or a nature preserve. Each solution has proponents and problems. We don't know which, if any, is correct. The Fermi paradox might be resolved by SETI detecting a signal, or by finding evidence of extinct civilizations, or by never finding anything and eventually concluding we're alone. Final cosmic questions. We conclude our journey with the ultimate mysteries, questions that touch the very edge of knowability. The heat death of the universe is one predicted scenario, but countless details remain uncertain. If dark energy continues accelerating expansion, as current observations suggest, the universe could keep expanding forever. Based on our understanding of thermodynamics, galaxies would drift apart beyond each other's horizons. Stars would eventually burn out. Black holes would slowly evaporate through Hawking radiation. Eventually, after unimaginable spans of time measured in Google years or more, the universe might reach maximum entropy, a state of perfect disorder where no energy flows, no work can be done, nothing happens. This is the heat death. But this prediction assumes dark energy remains constant. We don't know if it will. Dark energy could decay, change, or reverse. The universe's fate hangs on physics we don't understand. Even the heat death itself raises questions. What does a universe at maximum entropy look like? Do quantum fluctuations create brief, local decreases in entropy, perhaps even new universes? The far future remains speculation. What came before the Big Bang remains unknowable with current physics. The Big Bang marks the beginning of our universe as we know it. Space, time, matter, and energy all emerged from that initial singularity. But what came before? The question itself might be meaningless. If time began at the Big Bang, there was no before. Asking what came before time is like asking what's north of the North Pole. Yet some theories propose answers. Cyclic models suggest universes expand, contract, and bounce repeatedly. Our Big Bang might have been preceded by a big crunch of a previous universe. Eternal inflation proposes our universe is one bubble in an eternally inflating multiverse. Quantum cosmology suggests the universe tunneled into existence from nothing through quantum processes. But these ideas remain speculative. We have no observations of anything before the Big Bang. It may forever remain beyond our reach, a boundary to knowledge itself. The simulation hypothesis is a philosophical proposal that we might be living in a computer simulation. Some philosophers and physicists have explored the idea that our entire universe could be a sophisticated computer simulation created by advanced beings. The argument, first popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, goes, if civilizations can eventually create detailed simulations of conscious beings, and if they create many such simulations, then statistically, you might be more likely to be in a simulation than in base reality. How would we know? Some suggest looking for glitches, limits on resolution, or evidence of computational shortcuts. But a sufficiently advanced simulation might be indistinguishable from reality. We could never prove we're not in a simulation. This unfalsifiability bothers many scientists. It feels like a question we can ponder, but never answer, placing it outside the realm of science. Yet it raises genuine questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and existence itself. The fine-tuning problem asks why physical constants have values that allow life. The universe's fundamental constants, the strength of gravity, the mass of the electron, the cosmological constant, all have specific values. If any of these were even slightly different, stars wouldn't form, atoms would be unstable, or the universe would have collapsed immediately after the Big Bang. Life couldn't exist. Why are the constants fine-tuned to permit our existence? The anthropic principle provides one answer. We observe these values because only universes with these values produce observers. In a multiverse with varying constants, we naturally find ourselves in a rare universe compatible with life. But this explanation feels unsatisfying to some. Others seek deeper principles that might explain why constants have their values. Perhaps they're not arbitrary, but determined by a theory of everything we haven't discovered. Or perhaps there's only one logically consistent set of values, and we haven't figured out why yet. Why the universe exists at all is perhaps the deepest mystery. Why is there something rather than nothing? This question predates science, touching philosophy, theology, and the human need to understand our existence. Physics can potentially explain how the universe evolved from the Big Bang, how particles formed, how stars ignited, how life emerged. But why did the Big Bang happen? Why does anything exist? Some propose the universe emerged from quantum fluctuations, that nothing is unstable and spontaneously produces something, but this requires laws of quantum mechanics, which themselves are something. Where did those laws come from? Others suggest existence is necessary, that non-existence is logically impossible, or that the question is meaningless, that existence doesn't require explanation. These are not scientific answers in the usual sense. They can't be tested or falsified. Yet the question persists. Why does the universe exist? Why are we here to ask? This may be the ultimate mystery, the final question that science cannot answer, the boundary where knowledge gives way to wonder. And so our journey through the unknown comes to rest. We've traveled from the edge of the cosmos to the depths of consciousness, from the origin of life to the paradoxes of time, from quantum strangeness to the fate of the universe. 100 mysteries, 100 questions that science cannot yet answer. Some of these mysteries may be solved in your lifetime. Others might take centuries. A few may forever remain beyond human understanding. Limits to what we can know, imposed by the nature of reality itself. But that's the beauty of mystery. It reminds us that for all our knowledge, for all our technology and understanding, we still live in a universe full of wonder. The unknown surrounds us, invites us, challenges us to keep asking questions even when answers seem impossibly far away. As you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll dream of dark matter swirling invisibly around you, of consciousness emerging from neural dance, of time flowing forward for reasons we don't yet grasp. Perhaps you'll wonder about the origin of life, about quantum particles existing in multiple states, about whether we're alone in the cosmos. These mysteries connect us to every human who has ever looked up at the stars and asked, why? They remind us that curiosity is fundamental to who we are, that the search for understanding is as important as understanding itself. Sleep well, knowing that tomorrow the search continues. Scientists will probe deeper into the quantum realm, scan the skies for alien signals, study the brain's intricate networks, and chip away at the mysteries that surround us. And perhaps, just perhaps, one of these 100 facts will find its answer. But until then, rest in the comfort of unknowing. Let these mysteries be companions rather than frustrations, invitations rather than obstacles. The universe keeps its secrets, and that makes it endlessly fascinating. If you enjoyed this journey into the unexplained, please consider liking and subscribing to Whispered Knowledge. It helps others find these explorations, others who seek knowledge and wonder as they drift towards sleep. Thank you for spending this time exploring the edges of human understanding. May your dreams be filled with cosmic questions and quiet wonder. Good night.